What is good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Big Ticket. I'm your host, Vick3, joined by my esteemed colleague and co-host, JerryLee. JerryLee, how we
That's
doing today, my guy?
good. Doing good, man. Doing good. Ready to rock this thing.
Yeah, man. How you been, my guy? How's it going?
It's going all right. Going all right, man. I'm waiting for the football season to damn start. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get it on.
Hey, man, it's around the corner. It's just around the corner. But today we're joined by a couple of great guests. I got my guy, Lindy Endzone and Papa Sora. And, I think, they're two upcoming guys. Lindy, he's come back, after a little sabbatical. He's been killing it lately, working with big names. He's doing his thing. So I thought, I'd bring him on because I love his perspective, on the game and especially what's been going on lately. I want to get his take. So, without further ado, let's bring on Lindy on. What's going on, my guy? How are we doing today?
Lindy.
Doing pretty well. Other than trying a new pizza place today that was absolutely terrible and kind of a waste
Pineapples?
of $50. So
$50.
no, it was like $50, and I fell for the trap of it being an express place, and little did I know because I'm still trying to figure out all these new pizza places, and it ended up being one of those spots in a gas station. I'm like, oh well, wait a minute, it sounds like a restaurant, but no, I fell into the trap and one and done.
Microwave shit.
Yeah.
You're doing it wrong when the appetizers or the sides are better than the pizza itself. That's a problem.
They always say any pizza is good pizza, but that's wrong. It's totally wrong.
Yeah.
You know what though, man? Pizza's like sex. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It's still kind of good.
I don't know. Sometimes it's the sauce, or sometimes it's the cheese, but sometimes
Right.
all the ingredients.
No.
don't
But yo,
come out
you
right.
still gonna eat that shit.
You do because you're starving. That's why you got that pizza. But let me bring on our next guest. The newest member of the ECG family. Let's bring up Papa Sora. Papa, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing good besides having lower back pain all of a sudden.
Hey man, I hope that you feel better, man.
Get that foot out your ass, boy.
Ooh,
I didn't hear. What did you say?
Get the foot out your ass. You said
Oh, okay.
lower back pain. Just
Well, before we start, let me just say what's good to everybody in the chat. Appreciate everyone for coming through. We got my guy Big Play Slay, also member of the ECG family. Thank you, sir, for coming through. Hey, we got Stephen Joyce. Thank you, my guy. Hey, we got Drew Johnson. What's good? What's good? And I hope everybody's having a great night. It's Sunday. I know the workday starts off tomorrow. Everybody's trying to wind down. So I hope, we're able to entertain you here. Halftime, my guy, what's good? Random Anton, appreciate you all for coming through. But fellas, let's get started with this. This week it's been, they said there was a lull before training camp, but that wasn't going on this week. From the gate on Monday, there was some spicy talk. We had Derrick Gunn on his, what is it, JCAB, I believe it's pronounced, JCAB Network, talking about Jalen Hurts, and apparently Derrick Gunn, a guy who's known to be in, the know in football, had a source. We'll call it a source. He said a friend, but we'll call it a source. He said back in May, he asked about Jalen Hurts and, his progression. And apparently someone gave him a scenario. They said that, there was one day in practice where looks like there was 10 plays. Out of those 10 plays, there were 3 picks, 4 incompletions, 3 sacks. And that was out of that 10-play series. Then apparently Gunn followed up and asked a direct question. And, they were asking, what do they think about Jalen Hurts? Now, the response to that question was, he has a ways to go. Now, that in itself, we're okay because, apparently he has a source within the organization, and that's them giving their opinion on what transpired on that day. But for me, I think what I take issue with is what Gunn had to say afterwards, what he followed up with. Now, Gunn said, this is big, but with this quarterback, man, and this organization is not very comfortable right now with Jalen Hurts. Now, that's Gunn's personal opinion. That's where I take, I take a little issue with it. Because let's be honest, Gunn might have, some conversations with players, and, they might be cool in front of cameras, but we don't know what really happens after the cameras are off. We don't know what that relationship is. We just know what we see on screen. So I don't know how good Derrick Gunn's information is. I don't know how close his sources really are. But his personal opinion on what he thinks the organization thinks, I think that's a little too much. because I believe that if the organization felt that way of Jalen Hurts, it wouldn't gone out their way and got his best friend. It wouldn't gone out their way and make sure that this offensive line was secure. It wouldn't gone out their way to do most of the things they did in this offseason. But fellas, let me get your opinion, and I'll start off with you, Papa. What are your thoughts on Derrick Gunn's comments?
I mean, with Gunn saying, like, it's a long ways to go, obviously we can see that, you know, we saw stuff that needed to be improved on, yes. But pretty much I agree with... No, these are just blue light glasses so I can actually sleep at night. But pretty much I agree with what you said. If they did not believe in Jalen, they would not have gotten Devontae Smith. They would not have gotten or traded for A.J. Brown. They would have not brought in Landon Dickerson. They would have not brought in Grant Calcutta, who was Jalen's tight end in Oklahoma. So a lot of these guys that are brought in on the offense is because of Jalen. You hear Nick constantly talking about, Nick Sirianni, constantly talking about Jalen. You're constantly seeing the teammates working together, constantly praising him. Be going to Devontae Smith's softball game, going to Jalen's own training camp. You have constant teammates a part of those with Jalen. So I think some are alright, but I think most of it is just kind of, at this point, clickbait or just hearsay.
It is clickbait, man. Oh, for real, that is clickbait. I mean, just, it's stupid, man. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Gunn shouldn't be saying shit like that.
I think the biggest problem with it was this was reported a couple of days ago, and they were saying that practice was last month?
Yeah, dude, it's too
I think if we
late.
got it during last month, it would have been a bigger deal, but the fact that we're getting it a month later...
They're just trying to drum up some shit because, you know, they ain't got nothing else to talk about.
It's a long off season.
Try to get that clickbait.
I definitely agree with that. We'll expand on that in a little bit. But, Lindy, let me get your opinion. What are your thoughts on Derrick Gunn's comments?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, you waited until now to try and spice up the conversations, and it just seemed like the appropriate timing of, everything's happy-go-lucky right now. There's a bunch of positivity going on and so much excitement throughout the fan base that, they're excited on Jalen Hurts' progression. They're excited about A.J. Brown being here and this, that, and the third. And then, oh, well, let's drop a negative type of bombshell to really get people swinging both ways here. And, I mean, come on, but when are Eagles fans not used to something like this? But I will say that it's a little bit different. I think this case is a little bit different only because when Carson Wentz was our quarterback, it seemed when stuff like this would happen, it would be more, like a deflection of doubt. They're trying to rid of doubt and, throughout the fan base on how they thought of their quarterback. And, everybody's coming up with these questions, and they're like, the difference to me is that with Carson, we were trying to get invested into him, and there was just too many occasions where he's toying with our feelings, like, dude, we want to invest in you from a fan base's perspective, and we understand that, yeah, the front office may not have done a good enough job providing you with the appropriate weaponry and whatnot, but I think it also goes to show where Hurts is at a personal level with being the kind of leader that he is, and you need a special kind of mentality to develop a sense of trust in the organization to make the moves that they have done to this point. And I think that's what ultimately happened between the difference of Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. But now, they're trying to make a reading through the tea leaves sort of thing, and it just I don't think it's very appropriate, and the timing is just terrible. Training camp's around the corner. Like, let us see it for ourselves, and and go from there.
Yeah, listen, I remember there was someone out there who said that they knew back when the draft came through that they had it known for a fact that they were going to go and draft the first round quarterback, and they were going to give up all the first round picks. That's something that's always said. People always overthink it. But again,
Right.
let's be honest. Even when you're a reporter, someone on the national stage like that, like, well, I don't say national, but local stage like Derrick Gunn, even he doesn't have access inside the Eagles front office. Let's be honest. No one really gets information because only information is coming out. Now, again, I don't know how good, Derrick Gunn's sources should be trusted because, we don't know what his intentions are. I don't want to speak, go ahead.
They could be saying that just to calm everybody down and play it down a little bit too. It could be coming from the Eagles camp. Intentionally saying that shit.
Yeah, it could be, but my thing is, well, not that it could be from the Eagles, but no, I don't think it would come from the Eagles. I doubt that. I doubt that they would put fuel to the fire when they don't need to. That's attention that you don't want on your team. That's doubt that you don't want to put in before training camp. So I doubt the Eagles will do that. But my thing is, Derrick Gunn, we all know him, and I respect him, and I'm not trying to talk bad about him, but let's be honest. He's been past 2 years. He was let go from NBC. He's went on to create his own network, and all the power to him. And he's going to need attention for that network. We all know this, this past offseason, we've seen things like quarterback lists come out, and we always question them. And I always think that, the reason why they do that is just so that way it's a point of conversation. It gives you a buzz to what they're talking about. It puts attention on whatever they're just trying to put out there. That's all it is. And for me, that's what I see Derrick was trying to do. And once it came out, it created a lot of buzz. There was a lot of backlash. And have you seen since then, they have only put out positive things. It's only been recent, like, what was it, a couple of days ago, Gunn's been saying he's going to stick with his comments. But it's only been after the fact that they seriously backtracked. That's only after that happened. So, like I said, it could be that they were putting attention on their new channel, whatever the case. And I wish them all the best. Listen, Derrick Gunn's a legend. He's always going to be in the Eagles. It's going to be Philadelphia media. That I won't ever take away. But again, I just felt that, how he went about this week wasn't right. But someone else who had those feelings were, new player to the team, wide receiver A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown came out with spicy comments. He came out to Twitter and he said, that practice stuff about Jalen is fake. Brown said about the tweet. All y'all tweet and believe anything. Like, how can you get sacks on 7-7? There aren't any rushers, which is true because when you're playing 7-7, it's kind of like when you're playing on one-on-ones. You have a time. You have about 3 to 4 seconds, depending on what they give you. So within that time, once that time is up and you haven't thrown the ball, that's considered a sack. That's exactly what it is. So what A.J. Brown is saying, correct. Now, again, that doesn't correspond to what Derrick Gunn's talking about, not that much. But, Brown had more to say. He said, I believe water's above us. I believe that it makes an article about that too. This app is crazy. Meaning the fact that, everybody on Twitter and what they were talking about afterwards, which is true. Because once someone says something, they sensationalize. The fan base, for the most part, the ones that aren't that intelligent, I would say, not in the know with football, they just go off of what they hear in the media. They go off and then they respond because they want to get those likes. It becomes negative comments. So then that's what he was responding to. But let me get your thoughts on what, A.J. Brown was, his response to Derrick Gunn. I'll start off with you, Lindy.
It was predictable to me. Just the way AJ likes to carry himself. Of course, he's going to go to bat for his best friend for one. Two, he strikes me as the the type of personality that in terms of his quarterback, he's going to be out there on the front lines in front of everybody. But it strikes me even further, aside from the replies on Twitter, it strikes me further to think that, can you imagine the kind of negative backlash type of conversations that people will be having right now with Jalen Hurts in his football camps that he's having in Philly? Just put Carson Wentz in his shoes right now, and you can imagine how Twitter would be blowing up. If Jalen was worse off to this point, I don't know if he would be, and this may not be necessarily true, but I personally don't think that he would invest as much time immediately in giving to the community when he wants to build build himself a foundation here through the organization and want to be that next franchise quarterback. It's like if you're going to invest as much as you are right now and it ends up being for naught, then what was the point altogether? So I think I think watching him and what he's doing aside from football, he's preparing himself that he wants to be here for the long run. So if there was a better truth to what Derrick Gunn was saying, then I can't sit here and believe that Hurts is gonna devote some of his time for off the field activities and give to the community the way that he is.
Yeah, I agree. Papa, what are your thoughts? What do you think about AJ Brown's comments towards Derrick Gunn?
I mean, it's a brother sticking up for his brother,
Yeah.
They're basically family at that point. They've got that good of a brothership, that good teammates, they're that good of friends. My main thing is with this, AJ Brown's absolutely correct and in the right for this, and I do find the next tweet that he does, basically mocking Gunn with the in a 10-play series, Jalen threw 3 touchdowns to me. McNabb and T.O. fought the other 4 plays, and Vince Papale came out of retirement and had the other 3 receptions.
Yeah, that shit was funny, dude.
Like,
that shit was hilarious.
And it literally is. It's like the I can't remember where it's from, but it's like that one meme. It's like, oh, a big tough guy behind a computer screen. That's
Right.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. Everything that you need to read, unless you can.
He fits right in.
Yeah.
Already. He fits in. It's great.
Everything that you can read, unless you can provide like accurate source, accurate details. It's like doing an essay in high school. Unless you can provide the, I guess, meat to the bone, it's gonna be taken with a grain of salt. My main thing is with this was it said it was just what, a executive inside the Eagles office that said that's a gun.
Apparently, he didn't say if it was the Eagles front office. He just says someone within the organization. We don't know.
Okay, never mind that. Because I was gonna say
Again, that's why I said quote unquote a source.
Yeah, because when it was news for Carson broke out that he was like a bad teammate or whatever, it was a player, the guy that is on the field with him, not somebody sitting up in the front office. And you didn't really see a lot of people defend Carson. You see people defend Jalen. So I think AJ Brown was absolutely in the right, and I think his comeback tweet was the best. I think that was hilarious.
Yeah, I really do. Does anyone want to take this one? Because I think that's a pretty good question. Why do Eagles players feel like they need to fight the media so hard? If I could just say, it's because, these guys are putting, a lot of time into what they do. They're taking time away from their family. This is what they love to do, and this is like their craft. So when you're going to say someone, an outside source who has no information, no knowledge of what goes on inside that locker room, has something to say negative about them, yeah, I'm going to come correct you. If I'm a player, I'm definitely going to come correct you because you don't know what you're talking about. Don't come
especially
talk
being
about me and mine if you don't know what goes on in the building.
Especially being D Gunn.
Yeah, especially if you're saying, like, if you're trying to put all your credit out there, like a guy like D Gunn, you're trying to put your credibility out there and say, this is what I know. And then a player literally says, that ain't the case. That's for me, that's affecting your credibility going forward for me. Like when I look at D Gunn, every time he comes up with a comment, I'm gonna give him the side eye first.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna look it up now. I gotta look it up now.
Yeah, you can take as many pictures as you want with the players. That's fine. They're always there for a photo op. But now, how open are they going to be with you going forward?
Yep,
that's something that he has to look at now. Well,
definitely put it on his side.
If we're being real here, in all honesty, this isn't team specific. It's just about how much noise you want to create. With that kind of like how far you want that kind of like publicity to stretch. So I really don't think that it's team specific, but then again,
the Eagles, though, bro.
I mean, then again, right? But then again, Philadelphia has always known to have a really specific character to them, the players that play for the team and such. But, ultimately, if you want to generalize it, I think this can happen for any franchise, but it's about how loud you want to make the noise and, in that regard.
Definitely. Listen, everybody, before we go forward, let me just let everybody know, if you can, in the description of the channel, you can, assuming you have this show, you can see everyone's Twitter handle and everyone's YouTube page. If you can, please go to everyone's page, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you can, share out these videos, help out the algorithm for these guys. And if you can, do the same for me too. Hook a brother up. I'm trying to get to 200. I'm at 180 right now.
I'm trying to get to 1. Come on now.
Yep, I got really awesome. But you made a good point, Lindy, when you were talking about, this isn't team specific, because I really think it isn't. I think this is something that's been a growing trend for the past couple of years, and it isn't just local; it's nationwide. So let me ask the question: do you agree that there's a growing trend of writers and sports media personalities creating controversy just to bring attention to their platforms? I'll start off with you, Lindy.
I don't necessarily think so. But I think going forward, what they try to focus on is kind of like the Eagles content creator community, for example. We don't like to be cookie cutter amongst another. You always want that different voice. You always want that different opinion. Not necessarily to stir up trouble, but to stir up a conversation that people aren't necessarily thinking about. So I don't think there's a a negative atmosphere that's going on with it right now. Because it's simpler to me. It's simpler than a lot of people want to interpret it. I personally don't think so.
I think it was just a story. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it was so tucked into the conversation too that I didn't think they thought it through. Even I don't think they thought it was going to explode like it did either.
Sure. Yeah.
Papa,
but you had to have.
Oh,
I mean, you had to have known, though, Jerry. You had to have known.
Yeah, of course.
You had to have known that. So you're putting yourself out there for a player to react to it. As much as they like to stay silent on social media, there's always going to be that one person that's going to set it off a little bit.
Of course. I mean, I'm not saying I'm just saying it was just like a.
Right.
In the conversation, that's all.
Sure.
But he couldn't, they can't use
but
anything.
They went back.
Because it wasn't something that was just reported. This is something that Gunn felt comfortable enough to say.
You're right.
And that, he didn't, it doesn't look like he followed anything up, at least from what I'm seeing on my end, because I haven't seen anyone following up after her. I haven't seen anyone other reporters saying the same.
No.
I've only heard from Derrick Gunn's comments and then other, people on Twitter just commenting afterward and giving their own opinion. So no one's coming out and confirming what Derrick Gunn is saying. But my thing is, it's the timing. Again, if this happened in OTAs, why weren't we talking about it back in OTAs?
Right.
If you took this long, that must mean that you must have corroborated your information. Who's there to corroborate? I haven't heard anything. Again, no one else is confirming what he's saying. So again, for me, my opinion is, like I said, it's a new network. It's budding. They're getting attention. And he knew what he was doing when he had that information. He wanted to get some attention. He wanted to create some buzz, especially going into training camp, because I'm pretty sure that's what he was going to do. Once he was in training camp, he's probably going to follow up on something like that and talk to the coaches, talk to Jalen, and then make an even bigger story. But I think, again, he got a little backlash from it as soon as he said it, and they kind of backtracked. But, Papa, what do you think?
Real quick, before I answer this, did want to just go back to Olivia. With the Eagles player fighting, you've got friends in your school. If somebody's messing with them, you're gonna want to stand up.
Yeah.
It's at least with my mentality. If somebody's messing with a friend of mine, like a brother, basically. I don't got friends. I got family, and I'm not here to quote Vin Diesel, but that's what's happening. But you mess with the bull, you get the horns. You don't mess with family.
I think that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about kids with school, because if you look at it, for kids that are being bullied in school, you figure about 5 to 10 kids, and that's a lot for me. But now we're talking about probably thousands of people. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily bullying Jalen Hurts, but all these negative comments after a while, and especially when people don't really necessarily know what's going on. It's just their biased opinion for the most part. That's why players stand up and they're just like, I'm not even going to go through this. I don't want the 1,000 ats on my Twitter. Let's just stop this now. But
Yeah.
going forward, now we're going into training camp. There's a lot going on. And one of the players that we picked up this offseason, I'd like to discuss. He was a local guy from Emmaus, Pennsylvania, played for a local high school where I'm from. I was privileged enough to see him play when he was younger. He was a good safety linebacker, in-betweener. Went to West Virginia, had a great career, got drafted by the Chargers, and had an exciting rookie season, had 3 interceptions, but, he was hurt. Next 2 seasons, it looks like you can see that he was coming back from that injury. And then last season, for the most part, he had a breakout season. And the Chargers didn't feel the need to pick up his contract, and the Eagles swooped in, picked him up on a 1-year deal for $5 million. So my next question is, what do you think Kaiser White brings to the table, and how do you think the Eagles will use him? Papa, let me start off with you.
Yeah, I think Kaiser White was the best pickup that the Eagles did this offseason, including Brown, including the draft.
Over Hassan Reddick.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I really do, because that's a guy that, we've seen clips of him clips and pictures of him in practice. That's a dude that's, laying out, extending his entire full body, diving to get a block. When was the last time we've seen that with a linebacker? He was a Swiss Army knife for the Chargers. He was able to switch to linebacker. He was a safety. I think he was a safety in high school, right, Vic?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't he originally a safety? So, yeah. So, he's got...
Safety in high school.
He's got the background. He's going to be able to be the Swiss Army knife that Gannon is looking for. He'll be able to kind of be around the field. And I think he's going to be let me clarify this for the Eagles. I think he's going to be the best defensive player for the Eagles. I think that's a cornerstone guy that you've got there.
That's a heavy statement there, buddy.
I mean, yeah, but that's why I specifically said for the Eagles. Because I knew if I said defensive player of the year, they'd be like, everybody would have pitchforks, and they'd.
There's too many candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of Kaiser White, and you still have people on the Chargers saying we should have just signed him. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of people crying about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know they said Nakobe Dean was a steal, but I think Kaiser White was the real steal of this entire offseason.
Yeah, I can't rave enough about the kid. Like I said, he had 2 seasons where it looks like he was coming back from that injury. It was tough for him. But last season, he excelled. He does have some deficiencies in coverage, but for the most part, the kid gets after it. He's a great player. He's a hard worker. I'm excited to see what he brings to the Eagles. But Lindy, let me get your thoughts. What do you think Kaiser White brings to the Eagles, and how do you think they will use him?
Kaiser is going to bring an essence of a positive tackler, and I think the best way we can connect this is where Alex Singleton would have tons of games where he would collect a bunch of tackles, but a lot of them were net negatives than they were net positives. Where it's a like a too little, too late sort of thing, where he's chasing somebody down instead of just meeting them at the line of scrimmage or short yardage and running them over.
Or
falling backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to the level of the white snake Nate Gary that used to be here. And yes, I'm bringing up a terrible memory. I'm sorry. Oh God. Sorry.
Which way did he go, George? Which way did he go?
He laughed. I'm sorry. I ruined the stream. I'm sorry.
There you go. We're gonna have to put bumpers on this shit.
But I mean, it's the Eagles have just had a hard, inconsistent time with addressing the linebacker position, and now they seem to upgrade it in multiple ways. So you're gonna have your edge rusher Sam type of backer, that you got in Hassan Reddick. He's going to float between both responsibilities. You got a guy in Nakobe Dean that is going to be your future Mike, although TJ Edwards is going to most likely handle that role for the time being until Nakobe is ready. And then you're adding to the depth at will with the cross between Kaiser and Davion Taylor. Hopefully Davion stays healthy so that we can continue to see his development and improvement that people were excited about last year. And unfortunately, injuries keep plaguing him and staying on the field. And, so we just hope for the best for his sake. The Eagles took a big gamble on him, selecting him early in his draft class, and I think that was the infamous class to where who was it that I think Jim Schwartz wanted Kenneth Murray really bad, and he had to settle for Davion Taylor. So for Davion's sake, I hope that he is going to have his opportunities to show what he can do. But in the case of Kaiser, he brings an explosiveness. He brings a consistent capability of being very good in terms of stopping the run, something that Eagles linebackers aren't all that famous for. So when you compile all of that together, it reminds me of when we used to have a solid core between Jordan Hicks, Grugier Hill,
Dawkins,
Nigel Bradham, and Michael Kendricks. That's the setup that I'm kind of connecting the dots with right now. There's quality depth that we finally have once again, but now it's just putting the pieces together, and defining like the best packages to put them in.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I think Kaiser is going to be a great get. Again, we talked about it 1 year, $5 million. I think he's a player that's on the rise. I think he's a player that, as you said before, Chargers fans are regretting it, and the Chargers themselves are regretting it too, because when you look at what they have right now, they're not any better. And they actually took a step back in that position. So, their loss is our gain. Like I said, he has some things that he does need to work on. Hopefully
Sure.
he can, and hopefully Gannon can put him in the right position so he can attack. And that's one thing that he is good at, in the run game. He's quick. He sniffs out plays. I think he's going to work out very well for us. But
aside from the, I think one of the bigger things that we can look at here, Vic, to not cut you off, but aside from the contributions that he was able to make for himself in the Chargers defense, and only really fulfilling his rookie deal for them, the biggest thing is that, okay, he's got his second contract, but he's 26 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
He's young. He's young. That's the biggest. I have to say that's probably the biggest gripe as to why people in the Chargers organization and Chargers fans are as irritated as they are, because they gave up on a guy too soon when he was on the come up. So now the Eagles are just going to take advantage of that. Hopefully, Jonathan Gannon.
The Eagles are on the come up.
Right.
It's finally the other way around. Usually it's us giving up on talent.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's what I'm saying.
Elsewhere. Hopefully,
But
we can reap the reward from that.
I think we're going to have to get to a point in the season where, for what Nick Rallis was able to do with the linebackers last year, and it wasn't perfect by any means, but I remember at a point in time where even Nick Rallis was on the hot seat because people thought that he was too young to coach at this point in time. He was as old as some of the players on our roster, and he was a Gannon guy. After the result of last year, I think people expected worse, but he seemed to have done a pretty good job. So, grabbing guys like this and being able to coach up Nakobe Dean, you got Kaiser White there now, and then Hassan Reddick going to be one of the biggest staples in that linebacker core as a pass rusher. They're set for a long haul, and that's something the Eagles haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Howie for getting younger there, man. Like all over the place. He's building his team for the future.
I'm just happy at the fact that they put attention on that position this offseason.
Yep.
Yes.
That's something that was neglected for years. Like we always talked about it. It's that the Eagles always felt comfortable going in what they have at linebacker and it never working out. And it was time and time again. They continued to make the same mistakes. And I'm hoping that, with the moves made this year, they finally correct that. At this linebacking core, they're young. And, next year, I'm pretty sure they'll want to build on from there. But they continue to do so. You know what I mean? Like, we have to focus on every position. You can't be lax and say you're okay and feel confident in the position when you're not at 100%.
And
You
cornerback.
can't go into the season like that anymore.
And cornerback. Limping in a season with bad cornerbacks,
Yeah.
Right.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
But let's get into it, fellas. It's getting close. We are officially 9 days away from training camp. This long lull's about to be over. We're going to see a lot of camp footage. We have the open practice on September 7th. Hopefully, everyone's able to attend.
You mean August?
But in August,
August
excuse me,
7th,
August. Oh my! But fellas, what do we think? Let me start off by asking, and I'll start off with you, Lindy. What position battles are you looking forward going into this training camp? I know there's some up for grabs. We're talking about running backs. We're thinking about the linebackers. We don't know who's going where. We have safety. What are you looking forward to?
Special teams.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who's going to be our punter? Come on.
Can Britton Covey or Devin Allen make some noise in special teams, please, for the love of God? Because that was arguably the worst phase of the Eagles last year, and not getting any contributions over there. I mean, I've explained this at least a couple of times, and this was something I talked about with Philly 500 yesterday. Special teams can make or break a game. And, the Eagles were basically average or below average in starting field position between the offense and the defense last year. So can you imagine if there were cases where we had some explosiveness in getting longer returns or special team touchdowns, something like that? What that would do to boost the morale of us and to put the other team in a worse position that they're going to be in worse spots and trying to come from behind, instead of letting our offense beat their defense. I mean, it was pathetic last year.
It really was, dude. I mean, we were always starting at like the 10-yard line or even the 20. I mean, we were back all the time, dude, and trying to fight forward. I mean, the defense did shit.
It was just a negative sustainability. How much of an oxymoron you want to call that, but nonetheless, if I can point out a couple of position groups here, and I'm personally still stuck on the number 2 tight end. I don't exactly feel that Jack Stoll has that locked up, although he has been a great story as a undrafted rookie out of Nebraska, and really honing in on his pass catching skills, but being that Dallas Goedert is kind of still there. He just got his bag. He got his extension. He's the number 1 of this team for a reason. Zach Ertz is not here anymore, and part of me wants him to prove ESPN wrong in putting Kyle Pitts ahead of him in the recent top 10. I think that's a bunch of crap. Kyle Pitts
top 5.
Kyle needs to he needs to extend his resume a little bit after one good year, which, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it. He was phenomenal as a rookie for the Falcons, with Matt Ryan's last year. But let's not get it. I do not love J-Jaw. I don't love him. I'm just one of his, I'm just one of the very few advocates left that I created a saving grace for him, in which there is a way that he can work at tight end. But, I'll get to that in a minute. But
I would love for you to expand on that later on.
But
you got to catch to be a tight end.
Right.
I
know. Yeah, finish your Twisted Tea quick before I get to that story.
Oh no, and listen.
That gonna take a while.
What is it? Blackberry Smash by Briss Tea. Damn good. No free shout outs, but yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, please. I guess I'll put a lot of attention out there for it.
But there is a lot of conflicting factors here for the tight end 2 spot because um, I don't know how much of the 11 to 12 personnel dynamic is going to be affected if the team is going to want to throw the football a lot more. So, I mean, you can justify 12 personnel in having a decoy out there, whoever the number 2 is going to be for said play, to feature Goddard in those kinds of situations. Now you got Zach Pascal in the depth of the receiving core, so you can have a bit more physicality if you want to change that up a bit between him and Quez Watkins. But going down the line when you have Grant Calcutta here, who is another athletic pass catcher at the tight end position, he proved to be one of the more top targets over at SMU when he came back from his multiple concussions that he had to unfortunately go through, being Jalen Hurts' teammate at Oklahoma and quitting football for a little bit. So he's one of my top intriguing targets for there. Tyree Jackson, unfortunately, is going to be starting on the PUP list with Brett Toth. And then you got Noah Togiai, who's just going to be, a practice squad camp body type of guy. He really hasn't had enough opportunity to make noise, although there has been people that believe that there's promise there. But I think the top, being that tight end is top heavy right now, I don't think a guy like him is going to have a chance to really, show or prove anything. And then, well, Richard Rodgers, we don't need to expand on any of that. So then we get to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Do I have to tiptoe?
I need to get number 2.
I am still trying to figure out.
I'm intrigued.
How is he going to work, please?
This is
I don't doubt it at all because he does have the size. He can bulk up, but again, I don't know how he is with taking on blocks. Again, how good he will be. Coming out of running routes with hand down on the field. He's not used to that.
He got to block defensive tackles
much in this season, but I would love to hear your explanation.
He got to block defensive tackles and tight end and ends. You know what I mean?
So
it's a different story than blocking.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let's see. Go ahead.
So, despite those fundamentals that, of course, he's going to have to work with, and a lot of this, is going to be to the responsibility of the tight ends coach and Jason Michael, who, I give a lot of credit to in the development of a guy in Jack Stoll and what he has been able to do with him. Tyree Jackson was looking very good before injury, so I got a lot of faith in Jason Michael for what he's been doing for the tight end room. With that said, in the case of Arcega-Whiteside, now I did make a video on this, and if you have not seen it. I titled it "The Saving Grace for J-Jaw," if there is one, and I do believe that there is one that could potentially make him work. If we know on how NFL teams like to construct their rosters, typically they like to keep 3 tight ends. And I do believe that the Eagles are going to be in that situation again, where they're going to want to have 3 and cycle in the third one to swap with the second, depending on what the play call is, how you want your personnel structured, so on and so forth. So in that case, there is one player in particular that I have bounced back to from the Super Bowl year, in which he was the 3rd tight end that only played about 26% of the snaps, but there you go. So if you look at it, Trey Burton and Arcega-Whiteside to this point
he can throw the ball.
They're built almost exactly the same. They're both about 6'2". Arcega-Whiteside bulked up to about 240 pounds. Now, the best that I could paint this picture is that, well, Trey acted as another receiver on the field to where, if you didn't need Ertz in certain packages or in play action type of schemes, and you cycled him between Trey and Brent Selleck, we seen what Trey Burton was able to do. He had some excellent catches and plays in the Broncos game. He showed up in the Bears game. He showed up massively in the Rams game with
I like Trey
Carson's
Burton.
injury. And
but I'm not going to compare him to Umbrella Man.
And he was a big
Until
contributing
Philly
factor in the Super Bowl for the Philly special. Now,
Yeah, I was about to say,
I'm not gonna.
one of the greatest passes in Philly and Eagles history. A lot of people don't
Right.
bring that up.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not gonna sit here and make it like it's a mirror to mirror type of comparison. I'm saying that if they want to create any kind of success with Arcega-Whiteside, then they have to go back and look a little bit as to how they used Trey Burton. Like I said, he was in situations where he was capable of going up the seam on certain plays. You watched how he was used in the Rams game, where he was covered by a safety and a linebacker at the same time, and it didn't matter whatsoever. He used his physicality. He walled them off. He wasn't afraid of the football coming his way. Stuff like that. So that is really the only justification I have left in a means of trying to create some sort of success with Arcega-Whiteside. And if you think about it this way, Trey Burton came in as an undrafted rookie through the Florida Gators. Sora. He came in from Florida. He was very quiet.
Was terrible at quarterback.
He was very quiet in his rookie year and year two, but he started to come onto the scene about Carson's rookie year in 2016. He didn't get very many targets, much like in 2017 he didn't get very many targets. He only had 31 targets to my knowledge in 17, but it was what he did with those targets and how many he caught. He caught 23 on 31. That's pretty darn good. So he did just enough to get a contract to the Chicago Bears, to which his targets went all the way up to 71, and he became a bigger factor involved in that Bears offense, who we eventually had to face in the playoffs with the infamous double doink game. I get it. Arcega-Whiteside's in a position right now where when you go through that kind of transition, that's most likely than not a last resort for a player that's wanting to stay in the NFL and contribute in some way that they possibly can. So with him changing from receiver to tight end, this is kind of his last resort to maintain his career. But that is the only justification that I could make in trying to create some sort of success with him.
I think they're trying to create some value for him, if anything.
That too, yeah, it could very well happen.
Listen,
Same thing with Reagor. If they put him in at any time, it's just to create value so they could trade his ass.
But that's my thing. If they were able to, if they were able to get Trey Burton to contribute as an undrafted rookie, then J-Jaw as a second round pick, you have to imagine should do exactly the same. But unfortunately, he hasn't proven that to this point. So maybe a positional change will help him out, but that's still way far down the line to be determined.
Listen, Random. Listen, his argument was very convincible. He got me thinking it too. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility
Listen,
that
if this
it
whole
would
YouTube
work.
thing doesn't work,
No,
out,
but
you
it's
I
go to
think
law
it'll
school.
take time for it to work, and I don't
it's
know.
miles
if we have
of a
enough
stretch.
time to wait.
Yes.
I don't think he has time. There's too many
No,
other better
sure.
players.
Yeah. Listen, hopefully it does, because you know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that's been drafted in the second round. He's a guy who's been around here for a while. I don't want to wish ill on anyone. Hopefully,
No.
this position change is what he needs, so that way he can succeed in the NFL. But again, I think this is that moving from wide receiver to tight end, is something that's going to take some time. I don't think it's something where in
I
one
think
year you get a great tight end or someone who's to be able to take the third spot right now.
I think it's a kiss of death.
Could be. But
To
Papa,
who, J-Jaw or the fans?
Both. We gotta watch this shit.
Either
if
way,
anything,
we
it'll be
get-
the kiss of death whoever made that decision. That's who it'll be.
It's
Whoever
Howie,
makes
man.
that decision to keep him on.
Somebody pushed him to do that. It was probably Nick.
That'll be someone. That'll be a coach speaking up for him.
Listen, you're a flower,
Yeah.
you blooming, but if you lived in the tight end soil, you'd
Yeah,
be
yeah.
better.
You should
Sometimes you need a
definitely
little
go
miracle,
tight
bro.
end.
But we'll see how JJ goes about it. But Papa, let me get your thoughts. What position battles are you looking forward to this training camp?
I know you mentioned running back. Running back definitely's got a definitely intrigues me because you got guys like Burton Covey. You got and I don't think a lot of people are talking about him or even remember that we have him, but Kennedy Brooks out of Oklahoma.
Yep.
That. I know way back when there were talks of like, Kareem Hunt could be traded, Eagles should do it, that get them their power back, all that stuff, blah 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 blah.
Nope.
Those have kind of died out. So now you're looking at who do we have for our power back, and you're kind of looking now at Kennedy Brooks, if you even remember he's on the team. I believe it was like he averaged 4.6 yards a carry or whatever back in his last year of college. So definitely.
With that said, do you think he could make a Corey Clement type of surge?
Kennedy Brooks? Yeah, I think he could. I think he could.
I think he'd be better.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll find a way to be that third or fourth, because usually we keep 3 or 4, or at least like he'll be the main one on practice squad. If somebody gets injured, he's immediately elevated. Because I mean, besides Sanders and Gainwell, those are pretty much the only 2 locks. So yeah, Boston. Boston Scott, Kennedy Brooks, Britt Covey, who I'm pretty sure they're going to keep at the wide receiver anyway.
Jason Huntley, yeah.
Jason Huntley.
I think Britton Covey's going to be more like a return guy, especially.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think he's going to be the return guy.
And don't they still have Isaiah Holyfield?
What roster spot he's taking up, a wide receiver.
Elijah, no. I don't think
no,
so.
they trade.
No,
Did
Elijah's
go to Atlanta, right?
I think
Elijah
I don't know.
Holyfield, he's on the practice squad for the Panthers, I think, yeah.
Oh, was the Panthers?
I believe
so. He went back to Carolina then.
Yeah. Definitely interested to see Jaquaski versus Anthony Harris.
Yeah.
Jaquaski's bigger.
Yeah,
they're both stuck at that strong safety spot.
Yeah, they're both stuck at that strong safety spot. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see kind of who's going to be the main starting safety, and unless Tart like completely blows Harris out the water. The only reason why I'd say Harris is because Jaquaski's more versatile. He can go in the box. He can drop down blitz like a linebacker.
He can lay the hit on people too, man.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
So definitely interested to look at that. And not even really like a training spot, but I still have a feeling they're going to do like one trade or whatever for a whole. So just kind of interested to see what that position could be. Could it be another safety, like, and I'm just naming him, I'm not saying we're going to get him, but like a Jesse Bates or whatever? Could it be a defensive lineman? Like, I know Akeem Hicks' names has been thrown around. I'll go back to Kareem Hunt at running back. I'm not saying we're going to get any of these guys. I'm just throwing out names that have been in trade rumors for all of the teams.
I think to piggyback on your secondary situation, one position I forgot to mention is who's going to be the backup to Avonte Maddox. Is that going to be between Josiah Scott or Kerry Vincent Jr.? There's that's interesting to me.
Who's the one guy we got from? He was on the Redskins.
Who? Jimmy Moreland.
I think that's going to be the backup because he could be a starter. He could be a starter on any other team. So I definitely do think he'd be the backup. That's at least my pick, but I don't know. He could also just suck, and it could be a Josiah Scott again or a Kerry.
And we also have to remember some of these guys do provide some value on special teams too. I know that was. Tay. Jimmy Moreland was known for a lot of that. Arthega-Whiteside, for what it's worth. No, I'm kidding. he was.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No.
I'll give you that.
Right.
He was all right.
Well,
Craig James is still here. That's a big guy. Andre Sachare. I do believe Craig James is still here. I think.
I knew
it's either Craig
Sachare
James
was.
or
I just couldn't remember Craig James.
Yeah,
well,
Sachare still.
You raised a good question, Papa, especially with Jesse Bates, and he's been out there in stories, talking about not having a good relationship with the Bengals, not being happy with the fact that his contract talks isn't really going through. Possibly they might trade him. Yeah. But let me get both of your opinions because we did talk about the safety position. You do have to think about that going into next year, because right now it's just a band-aid for this year for the most part. You do have to solidify that safety position. What are your thoughts on the possibility of the Eagles trading for Jesse Bates? Start off with you, Papa.
I mean, they're definitely going to look into it. The Eagles always will look into talent out there. That's just what Howie does. I don't know if he'll do it. You might see, and that's going to be another positional battle with training camp. Who look at the two positions that are doing great. Like, we already know Mailata's locked up the left tackle, but if you start seeing Andre Dillard making noises, you put that out there, like, an insider being like, sort of saying like, blah blah blah, Dillard looking great. You know, we've seen pictures of him bulked up, and I'm just using Dillard as an example. But you see guys like that, and then you see guys like Bates, who's like, I'm not playing. Either sign me to a full contract, because he's not going to play on the franchise. He's going to pull Deshaun Watson and sit on the bench all season until he gets traded. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, without the masseuse. So.
I don't think that was in his contract.
Yeah, let's hope not.
I don't know if the team's.
So I mean,
I don't know if the team's going to provide that.
It's definitely. I feel like the biggest question with Jesse Bates is going to be: will it be with before the season, or will it be a trade deadline, or will it even be after the season? Will Bates literally sit out for an entire season?
I'm not even so sure about it because the money it's going to cost. You know, they got to pay Hurts next year. Probably get a contract for him next year. He's going to cost a lot of money.
There's a lot of moving around. You're talking about Fletcher Cox most likely won't be here on this team. You're looking at you got to think about too. This is something that I don't know a lot of people thought about. And this is just hypothetical. If Milton Williams emerges, and Jordan Davis, what happens to Javon Hargraves? How do you look at his contract?
Yeah, both Hargrave and Cox are free agents next year.
That's what I'm saying. Do you want to move forward? You save some money there?
I'm still keeping Hargrave. That's just me. I'm still keeping them.
Yeah. But let me get your thoughts, Lindy. Do you think there's a possibility that the Eagles would trade for Jesse Bates?
Jesse Bates makes sense in the way of, if you look at the safety position right now, your two top strong safeties are on 1-year deals. Marcus Epps is still in development at the free safety spot. You got Kayvon Wallace behind them. Sasha Ray is primarily for special teams. So, you know, going forward, there's really no stability there. And then in terms of who you would want maybe going forward between Jaquiski Tartt and Anthony Harris, I think that's a means of versatility. I believe Tartt is a little more versatile than Anthony Harris. So being that Jesse Bates is a free safety, if you want to keep Tartt at strong safety and have those two on the field at the same time, I think you're in for a nasty duo at the safety position in that secondary. So I think that's the only kind of justification you can make for trading Jesse, in regards that, you know, you're going to have that staple player at the safety position, much like we have staples at linebacker now, you know, with Hassan Reddick and, you know, the development of Kaiser White and Nakobe Dean. You got staples there. You have your staples for now at corner. You have your staples on the defensive line. There's a lot of staples that are holding this team together right now, but safety is one of the last positions that you still have to figure out after this year because of 1-year rentals. So, you know, in terms of that, I think that's the biggest go ahead to make a move like this if the money is right. Because, you know, let us remember, we were this close to getting Marcus Williams, and he decided to choose the Ravens instead. So if we were in a position to give him the kind of money that he got from the Ravens, since the contracts were the same, you know, Jesse Bates could very well be in a similar ballpark.
Yeah, listen, I think if it's feasible, I think it's a great move to make. Because like I said, after this season, we're back with the question of who's going to be our starting safety. We're going to be left with that question. And right now, there's no one behind.
Harris and Tartt are on 1 year.
Exactly.
And they're 30 years old, yep.
And I can't remember what the length Epps has left. I think he has maybe 2 years left, if I'm not mistaken. 1 year left?
He's in year 3 right now, so he has 1 year left.
So again, next season, safety is going to be a very big question. If you can make a move for Jesse Bates, and I know it was mentioned before, you got to think about Jalen Hurts' contract. But again, that's things that you can make moves to get around to make that work. Pretty sure Howie is someone smart enough to make it work. And let's talk about Jesse Bates' age too. Very young, exceptional talent. I think he would do well in Philadelphia, but a lot of them remains to be seen. I think it would be smart for the Eagles to make that move, but I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other teams that are interested in Bates or that will be interested in Bates. So there might be a little bargaining bid to get him.
Now,
That
I
might
will
be the
say,
issue.
I will say there is a number of individuals that aren't exactly as high on Jesse Bates from an overall talent perspective, but at that point it comes down to the team that he goes to, how much his talent is valued from the Eagles, or if I throw off the top of my head, like if he goes to an AFC team, obviously Pittsburgh doesn't need a safety, but you can picture the contrast there and how a guy like Jesse Bates would fit with the Steelers versus us. So I think it just comes down to the amount of value that he brings to the position, and which how it upgrades a specific team. Like I said, we got two strong safeties right now that are going to be battling each other. But again, Jaquiski Tart has the versatility to play free safety. So you can imagine that there's almost a perfect scenario there, that if you hold on to Tart over Anthony Harrison, you're able to swing a deal for Bates. Then you got some better stability going forward, that you can look to those two to be your core at the safety position.
Yeah, I
And
definitely agree.
definitely going off of what you were saying, Lindy, how like the Steelers, you would have the I can't even remember what you fully said 100. Oh yeah, how the Steelers would be like better fit, all that stuff. You'd also have to, or I assume Bates would also look at what team like is gonna need me more, and also like playing time.
That
Because
too, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
because
yeah.
if Jesse Bates goes to the Eagles, he's automatically the best safety on that team.
Mm-hmm.
If he went to a team like Pittsburgh, it'd be like they still got Minka, who's very underrated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
So he
that,
wouldn't be like
yeah,
that big of a need. And going off of what we've all been saying about, like you have to pay Jalen.
yeah. That's why I
I
made it
don't.
an overall.
Yeah,
To clarify, that's why I made it an overall, like a contrast of value to what somebody is worth from one team
yeah,
versus
that's what I was
another.
contrasting to.
So
Yeah.
that's where snap count comes in, and that and how he how you deploy him. Is he going to be automatically a first string player, so on and so forth. But yeah, so in the terms of the Eagles, because people are like, well, Jesse Bates isn't as good as you think, because that opinion is out there. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that his value is fixed through all 32 teams. It's about what he can bring to a specific team, and where you can display his full value as a player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Uh, I mean, yeah, that's 100%. And the only thing that I have to say with Jalen, how everybody's like, you have to look at his contract. I don't think Jalen's really gonna like demand a max dollar
No,
contract. Much like how
no.
Tom Brady, everybody's like, oh, how does Tom Brady do it? Tom Brady doesn't ask for like a max dollar contract. He gets a good enough contract where he is financially well, and also have them build around the team. And I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was like this. It was like the Chive or something. There's a YouTube video, and it's like how Jalen Hurts spent his first like million. And looking, the dude is very financially smart, very financially stable. So it's not
I
like
watched
he's
that. Yeah,
yeah. So it's not like he's gonna be like get his big contract and buy 4 Lambos. So I,
yeah.
I,
He's
I
very
don't
smart with
really
his money.
expect him. What was the leak, like 40 mil for his contract?
Dak
Yeah.
Prescott money. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really see Jalen Hurts with his contract being that big of a problem. I don't see him asking for like top money.
When you're talking numbers, Sora, I'll throw this out here. If we remember when Wentz got his deal, what his annual was, he was at 34 million a year, and that was coming off of a MVP type of season.
Yeah.
So I think that number for Hurts would be completely fair. But again, that was how many years ago when the market was different. So of course that is going to change,
True.
and as we know, the Eagles always like to stay ahead of the curve, and they want to beat market values. They want to get their guys in early, so it's not going to hurt them in the long run. So, but I had to throw that number. I had to throw that number out there because, well, we can say from an obvious standpoint that Hurts did not have the season that Wentz did in 2017. Although I would argue, despite the difference in pass attempts, Hurts was more accurate. You can take of that what you want with a grain of salt, or the whole container. But the point is that if Wentz ended up getting about $34 million a year for what he'd done up to that point, going into year 3, then I think it's only fair that is probably a good starting number for Hurts, depending what he does this upcoming season.
Yeah. Especially if he, like, how we're all predicting, takes you past the wild card,
Yes, yeah.
So then, yeah, absolutely. Especially since his first year, he did take you to the playoffs. Granted, he didn't win it, didn't look good in the playoffs, but, I mean, you saw the promise there, so...
Because at that point, it's not...
absolutely with what you're saying.
At that point, it's not completely dictated by his performance. It's also the market as well. You have to justify both means there. You're working with two. You're working with a tale of two halves there, not just one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But let's get back to these position battles, because one I find very interesting this season is the number 3 spot for the wide receiver. We all know number 1, number 2. We got Brown, we got Smitty. We all know that. But after that, that's where we come into some gray area. But there's been talks about Zach Pascal, possibly coming in being the starter. So let me get your guys' opinions. What are your thoughts on Zach Pascal taking time from Quez Watkins? And do you think, if that's true, would that affect Watkins' growth? Lindy, I'll start off with you.
I don't think there's necessarily going to be an effect on growth if you look at it in the way as Quez and Zach Pascal are not the same type of receiver. So, really, I don't think there's going to be a situation where they're going to get in the way of each other, especially with the versatility that your first 2 receivers have. Not only can A.J. Brown play the outside, but you can put him in the slot and really take advantage of the the short to intermediate area over the middle, where Hurts has struggled quite a bit, although he can hit Devontae Smith from time to time, in the middle of the field. But if you have a big body target like that in A.J. Brown working the middle, then you have to imagine that's just going to make it easy pickings for Hurts to hit him all day, so long as he can throw it over taller defensive linemen. Because let's go back to the fact that Hurts isn't your stereo, that he's not your prototypical size when it comes to a quarterback. He's only 6'1". We have been spoiled with Carson Wentz being that big, broad, 6'5", 240. He's got a cannon of an arm. Hurts is a little bit different in that matter. As we have liked to make fun of Kyler Murray for that difficulty, Baker Mayfield for that difficulty. With shorter quarterbacks, there's a little bit of a toughness there. So I think it's just going to come down to the overall deployment, of the receivers for a given play, and how Shane Steichen goes into his weekly game plan based on his opponent, and how he is going to scheme these guys up. I don't think it's going to be a means of Quez and Pascal getting in the way of each other, because Quez, for being a number 2/number 3 last year, had a lot of games where he contributed very well. That's not to say that he still has things to work on, because let's remember, he's a 6th round pick here. But you got to give credit where credit's due, in which he beat out John Hightower for that role, and where we thought Hightower was going to be competitive in that regard, and it didn't happen because Quez matured a lot quicker than John did. So if it's me, I would like to see a bit of a cycle of Quez and Pascal in the slot, depending on the matchups. Because I think with Quez's twitchiness and the speed that he possesses, you can take advantage of him in the slot if you don't want if you don't want a physical target there. Or you can swap him and AJ Brown, and you have two speedsters on the outside. Devontae Smith is going to have the ability for more free releases at the line of scrimmage. What this tells me is that the Eagles have a lot more versatility in how they can deploy their playmakers. So that's the way I look at it. So it's not a means of them two getting in the way of each other to me.
Yeah, definitely. Papa, what are your thoughts? Do you think Zach Pascal may interfere with the emergence of a Quez Watkins?
No, I don't. I don't think Pascal is gonna at all interfere with Watkins' growth. I do think, and I'm a little upset when we were talking about positional battles that I completely didn't think of Watkins versus Pascal, but I do think Pascal is going to win the starting slot because he is 6'2", 214, very physical receiver. Not a lot of people, I think, remember how physical Pascal actually can be, which would be a great target for over the middle, which you pointed out, Lindy. Lindy. With Hurts.
My name's not on screen right now.
I know. I just can't speak.
Right, there you go.
With Hurts having trouble over the middle, that gives him a physical receiver. Watkins, I think, and I kind of said this as soon as I digested Pascal being on the team, I think would kind of play the same role that Deshaun Jackson did when he's on the Raiders. He that fourth wide receiver,
right.
Put him in for certain packages, put him in as a speedy guy. We've seen Hurts is able to connect with him, even though, like with that one play, I know Watkins dropped it, but that one drop touchdown that Watkins had, it was to where only Watkins could catch it. It just fell right through his hands. But I mean, that you're gonna see cleaned up more than likely.
Oh, what game was that? That's gonna bother me now.
The Broncos.
I thought so. That was the first game that popped to mind.
It was right before halftime. It was right before.
Yeah, it was the left pine one.
Yep.
It was in the corner, and he flat out dropped it. Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, that's
that was a beautiful
what you're gonna
throw,
see.
though.
Watkins is that fourth receiver that can play outside or slot. So he is gonna be the multi-package Swiss Army, and then same thing with Pascal. Either way, it's not really a lose-lose situation because either one of them could be the third or the starting slot, and then the fourth wide receiver that could play anywhere. So
well, sir, if you think about it, Pascal is going to be what they were hoping Arcega-Whiteside could provide before the position change.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and also, it's been said multiple times by Nick Sirianni, Zach Pascal is his favorite type of wide receiver. Sirianni has made that clear multiple times. When I knew as soon as the Colts did not re-sign, Pascal was coming to the Eagles. Didn't know when, but I knew it was going to be a matter of time. So.
And another thing Pascal does great is the running, blocking against the run. He's very very good at that. Good route runner, like you said. He's one of Sirianni's guys. But another receiver that hasn't been talked about last season was talked about a lot, but this offseason, there's been a lot of negative comments. But recently, it's hushed down. But he's looking like the forgotten man, the odd man out. What are your thoughts on Jalen Reagor, and where does he fit on this team? Papa, let me start off with you.
You know where the water boy sits? That's where you're going now. I don't really know exactly where he fits on this team. I feel like you're not gonna see him starting. And maybe that's just what he needs. Maybe he needs to be that fifth or maybe even fourth wide receiver. Maybe he just needs to be not starting. Maybe he needs to take certain snaps, like in a kind of whenever you see Debo running the ball. Maybe that's just kind of what he needs. like what we saw in the Detroit game before he got injured. I don't know. I don't think. I don't. I really don't have an answer for you here, Vic. I don't think he's gonna have that big of an impact, and I don't really see him being on the team for that long. I don't think you can trade him because I don't think you'll get anything. But maybe like in a package and be like, listen, he's improved. This is his strengths. This is his weaknesses. Maybe you guys can do something. I don't really have an answer.
One thing I feel that threw him off was the lack of a screen game and how inefficient we were, because that's one aspect of Rager's game to where he can take advantage when he's on the field. As you know, as we remember, he had that one infamous play week 1 against the Falcons where he was behind a pancake block by Jordan Mailata and he had a clear runway to the end zone, where I think he outran a couple of DBs because he has the speed to do it. But when it comes to a receiver, much like a quarterback, sometimes there's guys that you need to get the ball a little bit early to get them going. Much like you get Jalen Hurts in a rhythm, you give him simple passes to work his arm out and get a feel for the offense and the play calling. And I think that's a position where Rager is in right now with that kind of lack of consistency. Then he gets put into different roles to where he's responsible for running, route X, Y, and Z, and he's having a hard time doing it. He can't get to his spots where Hurts is expecting him. He's dropping footballs, and then he starts to fumble punts, and he just can't get the confidence back that he once had at some point in time. And I think the lack of a screen game and some of those, explosive little gimmick type of plays that the Eagles tried to run and had an unsuccessful time of doing it. I think that did a lot of damage to Rager, where he wasn't able to contribute in the capacity that the Eagles expected him to. Now, granted, off the field stuff really affected him. The deaths of close friends, and we witnessed the how the death of Jeff Gladney impacted him, and losing other friends or family members and whatnot.
Each offseason, this man's dealt with a death.
That can definitely take a mental toll on somebody to help them maintain a commitment to something that they love to do. So I think in that regard, I love the fact that his father was a former NFL player, so he has that backbone to help him out. But your father's not going to be there on the field with you, and that's the type of maturity and the next step that we're hoping Rager gets, that we're hoping he gets out of this rut and show us the first round value that the Eagles put in him. And I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here, but you guys get the point. You guys get the point by now. We made our bed, we have to sleep in it, and we got to figure out something with this kid, but he has to help himself first.
In all
He
honesty,
definitely does.
In all honesty,
Right,
I would much rather, because you do make a good point, the death of Jeff Gladney this year, his best friend last year during the offseason, every year this man, and even his rookie season during training camp, was injured. So every year this man's had something.
The unnecessary social media banter that he had with somebody that got out, it's just too much negative attention, and that's what ultimately did Nelson Aguilar in. So that's something we're trying to avoid to this point.
I would much rather Jalen Rager pull what Calvin Ridley did, not the gambling. Take the year off for mental health. Work on your craft, just take a year off, come back. Because if, say we don't sign Zach Pascal, you've had the year off, you've got your mind clear, you've been working on your craft little by little, see what you got in year 4, because this would be year 3. Take year 3 off, come back year 4, see what you got. If you're garbage, you won't get your extended, or you won't get your 5th year deal on your rookie contract. We'll try to get you out of Philly.
But there was
I-
there was two perfect examples of that last year that were on his football team. Like he could have went and talked to Lane Johnson, or he could have went and talked to Brandon Brooks, who went through 2 Achilles injuries and still managed to put himself back on a football field and get close to Pro Bowl caliber play. I mean, you had a support system there, from a personal level, and then sometimes stuff like that, you gotta you gotta use it. There's plenty of stories to go around. There's plenty of support, from an emotional level. I mean, he had 2 guys right there that he could have went to, and we can only speculate to this point because we're not in the locker rooms. We're not personal friends of him. It's hard to talk to these players because they got a lot on their plates right now. But yeah, I thought I'd point that out as well. Lane Johnson took that kind of break. Brandon Brooks took that kind of break. And, again, wish Brandon Brooks a awesome retirement because he most certainly deserved it to this point. But yeah, I mean, Lane Johnson's a prime example of him still playing at, in the greatest, in still being in the greatest shape of his career. I mean, dude, what was it? Twitter videos and on Instagram and whatever.
He looks post of him like Jack.
The guy looks like a Sasquatch, man. I don't want to be in front of him on that field at all. He'll destroy me. But no, I mean, for emotional ties, they were excellent examples that he could have went and talked to guys like that. But again, we can only speculate.
Yes. Well, I will say this in reference to, the passing of a friend. Everybody handles grief differently. Mm-hmm. Some people, they don't want to bring it up. Some people would like to open up about it. Some people feel that, what they were doing and, especially with the work that they're doing, that might be something that takes away from, just that thought of constantly thinking of that, horrible event. But, like I said, everyone handles it with, their own special way. But with Rager, there was a lot of adversity from last year. He had some good games. The Detroit game. That was a very good game for him. But, there were some times where you saw that he just wasn't focused. He wasn't totally there. And when you see him going off, in front of reporters saying that, he doesn't need to work on his game or, it's just one drop. When you make comments like that, that goes a little bit beyond of, what's going on. I understand that, you might be going through some things, but if you're on the field, have your head in the game. Make sure that you're 100%. If you're not in any way, then you're going to have to excuse yourself. Hopefully this season, he's had time, to heal. He's had time to get to know himself better, as a player and as a man, in general. Hopefully he had that time away. He can get better. But I will say this for Jalen Rager as the football player. I think it's a positive that we still have him here for this fact. Last season, I think too much was put on to him to be that number 2 guy. That's too much. But now we're looking at him as the number 5 guy. Last year's number 5 guy is Greg Ward. So I think that's way better than what we were at last season. So I'm comfortable with him being that guy. I'm comfortable with when we really need someone, like not to say in a pinch, but when we need just someone to have someone to take a breather, you bring in Rager, who is talented, and who's to say that he won't work better at this season and play better, and may show the coaches something that they might want him to stick around next season. And again, that only benefits us because then again, we have 5 solid receivers. So when you look at Jalen Rager, if he had the responsibilities of number 2, yeah, we'd be in big trouble. But we're talking about he has the responsibility of a number 5 guy. So right now, I'm good with that. I think that'll give him enough time to work on his game. That'll give him enough time to work on how to be a professional. Because there were a lot of things, like you said, that back and forth on Twitter, that's not how a professional should conduct himself. So I think it will give him time. And who's to say that he might not earn spots? It might be the number 3 guy. Might work in that slot. Might show the coaches something we haven't seen. We don't know. And if he isn't able to prove anything, then we know, just like a lot of other people on this team, they won't be here next year.
I also think
I'm glad he's here.
I also think the implosion of Carson Wentz in his rookie year was a terrible start to his career. So now, now the misfortune of having to deal with a quarterback that just hit the self-destruct button. You're going into another offseason where you have to get used to a new quarterback, a new head coach calling the plays, a new offensive coordinator. There's a lot of new going on, and although some of it is positive, he was still dealing with a setback at the same time. So And then, maybe in that case they elevated him to a role of responsibility that he wasn't ready for yet. And well, that's sometimes that's what separates the boys from the men. And you can also paint a picture like that too.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But
And
going
also,
forward, oh, go ahead, Papa.
no, I was just gonna say also, even with I think another thing that hurts him. I'm not even saying like, oh, just Jefferson was there. Regardless or not, Rager should not have been a first rounder. He could have
Oh,
he could have been there in
He
the
wasn't
third.
projected to be either. No.
yeah,
He literally could have been there in the third. So that expectation, how you were talking about the implosion of Carson Wentz, that expectation alone,
Yes.
or so you have the expectation of being a first
Hmm.
round talent, and now you add and exactly what you said, the implosion of Carson Wentz. So this guy throughout his entire now going on year 3 has really just been dealing with a bunch of shit, and some
Wrong
of it's
place
his
at the
fault,
wrong
yes,
time.
but
Yeah.
not all of it is his fault. And I'm not even a Rager fan, but I gotta say that not everything is his fault. You
Yeah.
know, this man had injured rookie year, implosion of Carson Wentz. Last year, thrusted into that wide receiver 2. Some might argue wide receiver 1, which is false. Death of a friend. This year, you're dealing with everybody hates you, death of your best friend. So, I mean, this guy has just had a shit road in the NFL career. And I mean, hopefully, and really I do hope that it does get better for him, and hopefully he can prove himself.
definitely. Because if he can, again, that's only a benefit for us. Again, then we had 5 outstanding wide receivers and the kid who could even do special teams. Now, a lot of people don't want him anywhere near special teams. But again, he's been going through a lot. Like we said, he had a lot of adversity. And the one thing, great players do is they play through adversity. So hopefully he's able to do that. Hopefully, like I said, he's able to have a clear headspace. He's able to come in here and, show all his talent. Again, we all know that he wasn't meant to be a first round pick. When it's all said and done, that might be the worst pick that Howie Roseman's ever made when you look at Justin Jefferson's career when it's all said and done. But we'll see. That remains to be seen. Hopefully, Jalen Rager can make a name for himself, and hopefully, he can do it in Philadelphia. That's what I hope he can
Y'all need a quarterback first.
do. Yeah. But what I wanted to get to, instead of Jalen Rager, we talked about Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal. Let's talk about the starters. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts. We've seen them all through Twitter. We've seen the pictures. They've been spending a lot of time together. They've been training. They've been working out at the Bro Barn. But let me ask the question: with all the time that those three have been spending together this offseason, do you think that there'll be issues with chemistry when the season starts? Will everyone be on the same page? Lindy, I'll start off with you.
I definitely think that they're going to be. I think the only thing that they're going to have to work around is understanding that there's only one football, and sometimes that they're going to have to split targets. Either that, or it's going to be completely based on the game plan. Like who is going to be the best matchup for said defense. Like in other words, if we face like the Detroit Lions, the Detroit Lions in Week 1, I don't think they have anyone in their secondary that's a threat to either AJ Brown or Devontae Smith. But if you go against Green Bay, and you got Jair Alexander over there, and you got Eric Stokes. Well, who is going to be your de facto number one that you're going to want to try and target the most? And I think that between AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, they'll have to work that out a little bit. But what the best part to me is both of their demeanors. They don't strike me as selfish players. They don't strike me as players that, I need the football X amount of times. Like, you got to get me the football or else sort of thing. They're not like that. They're comprised of a winning mentality. It's an all for one for all sort of leadership and the way that they carry themselves. And to have the type of leader that you got in Jalen Hurts, you got a bit of a hydra to work with there, a Hurts hydra, if you will. And I don't think anything like that is going to be trademarked or nothing, because that was just terrible on my
those
part.
hats being sold.
No. There's already Hurts season, but you get the point there. I mean, you just have a three-headed monster that you could potentially be working with here. Much like the Cowboys tried to create a three-headed monster with Zeke and Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott. So now the Eagles are in a similar position here, where it's two number one receivers, but again, that's going to elevate expectations. That's going to limit the amount of excuses, if there even is any. I think they are manly enough to face that kind of challenge.
Yeah, hopefully. Papa, what are your thoughts? Do you think there'll be any chemistry issues when week 1 comes around?
I don't think there will really be any chemistry issues. I mean, everybody's going to have their off games. And I have a feeling that that's going to speculate, like, oh, there's chemistry issues. No, just everybody's going to have, like, an off game. I agree with what y'all were saying, like, looking at the Detroit corners, I could take my matchup. Smith could win his matchup against whoever the CB2 is. I assume Calcutta is going to be CB1 and up against A.J. Brown, so A.J. Brown can win that. And then, like, you go to a team like Green Bay, you got A.J. Brown against Jair. He's bigger and physical than Jair, but Jair is arguably the best corner. And then you got to look at Kevin King, who is fast, but with Devontae and his route running, more than likely you'll see Devontae there. The only thing I'm hoping, and as stupid as it sounds, hoping there's not, like, favoritism, like this person's going to get more targets, which I don't think there will be, because that's just... No NFL quarterback should do that. It doesn't matter if you're like a third stringer or a starter or not. There should be no favoritism.
Right.
So I'm not really worried about any mixed chemistry with that. I'm not really worried about mixed chemistry at all.
We're not even talking about the tight end either, in Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, exactly.
he's got three top pass catchers on his football team right now that all need the football, but it's gonna predominantly be matchup based. And I think there may be some minor issues between him and AJ Brown, because they haven't exactly been on the field together, even for a full season. Like, Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts are already on the same page with a lot of things, although Hurts' timing has been a problem, and between that and not getting Smith the football when he is wide open, aside from those things, they know what each other likes. They know where they're going to be in certain spots of the route, and timing based with Hurts in the pocket, so long as the pocket is clean and he actually uses it instead of going through his first read and running. But in regards to that, we still need to see that kind of connection between him and A.J. Brown. Now, I think from this point we feel it's going to be more seamless than not, that they're going to have an easier time clicking week 1 instead of, week 4 or week 5. But I don't think that it's going to be the void of any problems whatsoever. I think there'll be some minor hiccups between the two of them, because they need to get used to each other's game speed instead of, training camp or OTAs, or just playing catch with one another, or throwing routes on air and whatnot to AJ. Until we see them at game speed, then we can better determine. But yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think when they come in, I think there might be a little issue on just being able to spread the ball around, because you have so many guys out there to spread the ball around. I think that might be it. I don't think Jalen may focus on Dallas at first, and then as he gets comfortable as the season goes on, you'll see him spreading the ball around more. But I think that would be, I don't even consider that an issue, but I think that would be the only thing that I see going on at the beginning of the season. But
we could easily say that he has enough pass catchers now to not be as run centric. Like, come on, somebody is going to be open on the field. Just hit them. That's what we're hoping for.
But speaking about the run, let's focus on the run game for this season. I asked last week about Miles Sanders. He has a lot of adversity going through. This season is going to be a big season for him,
Mm-hmm.
especially with contract. He's going to be looking at a contract season. And I asked a question last week: is he a lead back? For the most part, the consensus was yes, he was. But I think there's an even better question to ask: can Miles Sanders be the reliable back that the Eagles need this season? Papa, let me start off with you.
Well,
My main question is, when you say reliable, I assume, are you just talking about like running back one, or like if we're in a
I'm
game
talking
winning
about,
situation, he can
yes,
get it done? Okay.
running back
Um,
one, staying on the field, being the guy that we need in the red zone, the things that he wasn't able to do last season. Can he be that guy this season?
I'm thrown off a little bit. Who was in the consensus that thought Miles was elite?
No, not elite, a lead back.
Oh, it almost sounded like
Lead
elite.
back.
Like, oh,
I did hear it lead
okay,
at
No,
first,
no,
but
no,
then I
no, a
remembered.
lead back.
I
I'm sorry.
also remembered I watched it
right,
last week, and I was
Hey,
like,
man, I
okay.
learned English from
right.
Sesame Street. I apologize.
Okay,
Um,
good.
yeah, I think Miles can end up being a reliable back. Obviously he did not have the best of season last year. Obviously, I'm not even really worried about the 0 touchdowns thing, because he had, when he got the ball, when we started running the ball, like actually constantly instead of 4 times a game, he was able to set up the team in good positions. He was able to set up like for first downs. He was able to get a high second down, like it would be second 6, second 5, whatever.
He still only averaged 11 carries though. So that has me a tiny bit concerned, because I know Hurts is taking a lot of that opportunity away from him, and the fact that he wasn't used in as many red zone packages as we anticipated. To where you can look and say, Jordan Howard had 4 touchdowns last year.
Yes.
Sanders had 0. and Howard was what, the number 3 in that
Well, he emerged as
in
number
I'd
that.
two
argue he
after
was
a
the
while.
number 2. I'd argue Kenny was the number 3, and then
Sure, that yeah.
once Miles got injured, it was Howard 1, Kenny 2. I mean, that's what I would
fair.
argue. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion. And
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I absolutely do hear you, but now you've got Shane Steichen, who is notoriously known for pounding the rock in the Chargers. So it's going to be interesting to see what Miles does. I think looking at the schedule, starting with Detroit and then going to Minnesota, week 3 against Washington, I think those are going to be some good tests to kind of see if Miles. I'm not saying you're taking 3 games as the example, but I think it's like Detroit should be easy to run the ball against. Vikings, Washington, may mediocre-ish, but I think that's kind of a good gauging point to see. And even if come the offseason next year when you're having to sign Miles, it's who's to say it's going to be a big contract, or it could literally be a contract like with what Derek Barnett has,
AK, you're dying on
two-year
that train,
and
aren't
able to
you?
get out of the first year. And AK, I was literally talking about Kennedy Brooks earlier in the show.
He's ready to die on that train.
You should have been here, man. I was talking about
Came up
Kennedy
earlier,
Brooks
yeah.
earlier.
He's
Well,
ready to die on that one.
Then let me follow up with this because we talked about this running back room, and like we said, we still have Boston Scott. He's our
Yeah.
reliable guy. But then we
Right.
also had a 5th-round pick last year in Kenneth Gainwell. Now
Mm-hmm.
we saw early on in the season he got some time, and as the season went on, it died down a little bit. But what are your thoughts on him in this season coming up? And will he be taking time away from the Miles?
I think Miles is going to ultimately be the independent factor on that for himself. Well, first of all, he has to healthy. I mean, the dude only played 12 games last year for one. 2, they're going into a type of type of transition to where they're watching how Dallas uses Tony Pollard. They're watching how Washington uses Antonio Gibson, two other Memphis products that have proven to have a good amount of success in their offensive structures. And, they see the ability that a Kenny Gainwell, has as a receiving type of back, something that Miles has struggled with up to this point as of late, to which we can just go back to 2020. And no, we're not going to go back to 2020. But for example, he was pretty bad. He was pretty bad, and he made a good enough type of an improvement when he was on the field. But it's just the succession of those nagging injuries that continue to happen to him, whether it's a hamstring issue, an ankle issue, broken fingers. I don't know. Miles is going to get in his own way in terms of that, and I think that'll be the ultimate determination on how often or not we're going to see Kenny, because again, he has a talent that you don't want to waste or underutilize.
Definitely. Papa, what are your thoughts on Gainwell?
I'm a very big fan of Gainwell. I think he gains well. Anyways, bad jokes aside.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Dude definitely should not have been a 5th round pick. He took the year off because that was the COVID year of football. And I mean, again, Nick and Howie loved that dude. So obviously they both were like, we're drafting this dude. We want him. They already had game plans set out for him. It's Sirianni. You can argue, or not argue, you can say that Gainwell's Sirianni's guy, Miles isn't, so Gainwell's going to get more attention, more snaps. But the main thing that I look with Gainwell is I would argue he's going to be our best receiving back. We haven't really seen much of Miles in the receiving back since his rookie year. Miles is kind of I don't want to say boomer or bust, but like he'll get a good certain amount of yards. Like he'll get average like 3, 4, and then he'll rip off for like a 50, 75 or whatever. Gainwell is kind of like your more, I don't want to compare him to Corey Clement, but kind of the Corey Clement role in 2017. He's a switch army knife. Is he going to run? Is he going to catch out the back? Is he going to do a screen? Or that's the same thing. Is he going to like go on a wheel route? Is he going to catch a screen? Is he going to run straight up the middle, cut to the outside? What is he going to do? So Gainwell's kind of the guy keeping you guessing. I do agree with the what the Cowboys are doing with Zeke and Pollard. What Washington's doing with Gibson, and I can't remember the other dude's name. But I mean, I feel like it's gonna end up being the 1-2 punch. I just don't know if you'll end up seeing Gainwell be 1 and Sanders be 2. And I don't think it really matters if Sanders is the number 2. If he's taking less snaps, but still breaking off or gaining those average yards of like 3 to 4, and then breaking off the original 75. If he's the number 2, I don't see why people complain. I know people would say he's a 2nd round pick, but at the end of the day, who really cares, Because you get guys like Quez, who's 6. We're all talking about him starting over Rager, who's 1st. You got Zach Pascal, who went undrafted. Positions don't really care. Positions don't really matter. If you beat out the spot, you beat out the spot. If you perform when you perform, you perform.
I think that's going to be I do think that's going to be a hard justification at the same time, though, when you figure that, Miles being in a contract year right now, and you have to imagine the Eagles are going to try and, see if he comes out of this rut. They're going to look at 2 things. One, if he can stay on the field for more than 12 games, and 2, what does he do in those 12 games to try and revitalize the versatility that he possessed in this rookie season and build off of that. And in a lot of those cases, when you have a running back that's on the last year of his contract and you're looking for a possible extension, well, you know, in a negative light, teams are going to want to exhaust him of all his services as possible to not only give them a better, to not only give them a better chance and efficiency in the run game, but they're giving him as many opportunities as he can to prove himself. Now, again, that I think that's the contrast that they have to work around is that, okay, well, Kenny Gainwell is only going into year 2 right now. He has a lot more time left to prove himself at his position, whereas Miles, this is a boom or bust kind of situation for him. And if you want to describe him in a way that he's like a step or two down from Saquon Barkley to where they're a home run waiting to happen, but Miles is just less consistent in that regard. It's like a baseball player. They don't have, it's like a baseball player that doesn't have the greatest average, but you darn well know that when he comes up to bat, he has more than enough power to knock it out of the park. It's just when he's going to get that contact, and I think that's where Miles is at right now. But he's very confident that he can get himself to that level. So, I think that's just the only conflict going forward is how much emphasis they are going to put on trying to exhaust Miles with X amount of carries, because again, he averaged 11 last year. Are we going to see a means of 14 to 16, something like that, or are they going to try and split it between him and Kenny? That I think that's yet to be determined.
Well, that would lead me to my next question, because I was just going to ask, will Kenny take over the number 2 role?
I think there's a good chance he already has it over Boston Scott.
I feel like he already is the number 2.
Yes.
Well, so far on the depth chart, at least, Boston's number 2.
That's a placeholder to me. Honestly, I think that's just a placeholder right now.
That's the placeholder, and then also, mainly placeholder, but also and again, it's going back to comparing it to 2017, which is not what I'm trying to do, but that's just the best way to describe it. You have your running back, you have your power back, and then you have that Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, because we didn't start with Ajayi on the roster. He came at the deadline.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And even
but
then,
I will say again, we have to go back into how these guys contribute on special teams too. Do we want Boston Scott back there again, returning punts and kickoffs, and between him, Greg Ward, and Jalen Reagor? That's not an ideal situation anymore.
I don't even think Ward will be on the team,
and that's unfortunate.
Or he'll be practice squad, but
right.
I don't see how he can start, and that's even with Jalen Reagor as a possibility, or not even start. I don't see how he gets a roster spot.
Yeah, I think it'll be a big factor in how they contribute, not just offensively, but do you have any value on special teams too? Because that, like I said, it was pathetic last year. It has been very underwhelming between Dave Phipp and Michael Clay. So, but I think Michael Clay's got a few things, a few little tricks up his sleeve on how he can improve this. But I do believe he needs the personnel to really improve on what he wants to do.
Definitely. And speaking of personnel, let's switch the attention from the offense to the defense. There have been a lot of moves made this year. We've seen the draft. There was a focus on building the defensive side of the ball, from the cornerbacks to the linebackers to the defensive line. And we had a lot of issues last year with our defense. It was said for the most part, Jonathan Gannon was handicapped. He didn't have the talent that he needed to call the defense that he wanted to. But with this offseason, it seems though Howie did his best to rectify that issue. So let me ask a question. With the new additions to the defense, do you think Coach Gannon will be more aggressive in his play calling? Lindy, I'll start off with you.
I don't know if there's going to be. I don't know if the true emphasis is going to be on aggressiveness. I think it's just more. I think it's just more about consistency and what he wanted to do from a standpoint last year, and having a hybrid type of scheme where where he can go into a 4-2-5 look, or 3-4, or 4-3, and go across the board like that, where he's not limited to just man coverage, on the back end with the secondary. He can work in a little bit of quarters. He can work in a little bit of nickel packages. We may even see some not dime, but some exotic looks with that cover three. So going forward in that regard, but in the midst of that, I think the aggressiveness is going to come from, again, he has the depth to now do what he wants to do. He's trying to work. He's trying to work around injury, the loss of Brandon Graham. Davion Taylor gets hurt. The linebacking core isn't sufficient. It isn't sufficient enough. The secondary still had its issues from time to time with trying to blanket Steven Nelson. You upgrade with James Bradbury. The defensive line gets more depth there. So we're not going to hopefully see freaking Fletcher Cox drop back into coverage and do something stupid like that. But it still gripes me to this day, the fact that the Eagles have done more for Jonathan Gannon going into year 2 as still a new defensive coordinator than they really have almost ever done for Jim Schwartz. For you to have that much faith in this guy's philosophy to get done what he wants to, and for it to be underwhelming the first year as two different contributing factors in Gannon being too vanilla and predictable, and the lack of personnel, there's a lot being put on his plate right now to where, there's either excuses that are running thin or none whatsoever, because I think he has more than enough quality players to get done what he wants to.
I agree all the way with that. Definitely. That I think Gannon is a guy who, because of his relationship with Nick Sirianni, let's be honest, that's why he is where he is. There are two guys who came up together. I'm pretty sure Nick Sirianni already had it that, if he got the job, that was his guy. He was his best man. We understand their relationship. But what happened last season cannot happen this season.
If I can expand and be a little more simplistic with it, he wasn't able to take this from a step-by-step approach. So step 1, consistency along the defensive line, stopping the run, having an efficiency of getting to the quarterback. Step 2, the secondary was up and down. There was no consistency there. So if you don't have your step 1 and your step 2 in place, then the aggressiveness, if that's step 3, well, the dominoes aren't falling in line. So I think that's where, the Eagles looked at this from a front office perspective and looking at the personnel and saying, okay, well, now we have the guys to complete step 1. We have the guys now to complete step 2. There's going to, we hoped for a better consistency there. Then, once step 3 comes and Gannon is more comfortable in certain positions, now he can be like, okay, I can now unleash the hounds and start to put more pressure than I was able to last year, because he has the guys to play the positions that, he has wanted that he has wanted to in the first place. So I think it's a step-by-step approach.
Definitely. Papa, what are your thoughts? Do you think Gannon could be a more aggressive play caller with the additions that he received this season?
I think he can. I feel like it's going to depend on the teams they're playing, and I guess what the Eagles defense itself meshes well. If they're better just covering and not as good as blitzing, I feel like they're going to be more conservative. If they're good at blitzing, I feel like you're going to see blitz plays increase. If you have a shaky O-line, then I absolutely think Gannon's going to send the house. If you have if you're going up against a top O-line, you're not going to see as much aggressiveness. Instead, you're going to see just a lot of conservative, the kind of the same with the bend, don't break. I still think you'll see a little bit of that, but I do think it won't be the bend and then break. I do think you will actually see a stop this time.
Hopefully. But let me ask them, because I think, there are people that are on the fence. There are people that have trust in him. But let me ask your opinion, and I'll start off with you, Lindy. What is your confidence level from 1 to 10 in Coach Jonathan Gannon going into this season?
I think based on everything considered and what we saw last year from just a talent perspective and a execution perspective, I think it's fair to cut it down the middle and call it a 5. As in, the job, he left the job half done, and now that he supplied, now that he is supplied with the material to complete the job, you should then want to elevate it to about a 8 or a 9 coming out of this coming season. That, okay, maybe this is the guy going forward that we want at defensive coordinator, because he is able to put all these guys in positions to show that they are successful from a week to week basis, and that he's not going to be overwhelmed when he's seeing different looks from an offensive standpoint going from team to team, week in and week out. So I will cut it down the middle from a point of fairness and say that, well, right now the job's not done, and he has to prove the other half of that portion, to show us what he can ultimately do.
Definitely. Papa Sora, from 1 to 10, what is your confidence level in Coach Gannon?
I'm gonna have to agree with Lindley here. 5. There were some games that it was like absolutely god awful, and then there were some games where he was showing it. Or was showing that he was able to actually put a stop. There was just no consistency with this team in general. He came out and said he doesn't have the weapons. You have the weapons now. So I think, and kind of going off of what Random's saying right now, you've got very good defensive players, so you do have a lot of potential to raise it, but as of now, I do think it is fair, and I hate that F word, but I do think it is fair that or to give him a 5, because he showed he can be good, he showed he can be awful, and he did deal with injuries. So you're getting those guys back. You're getting better players now than what you had. Before you had Baby Arm Singleton, who would fall backwards after a 10-yard run. Now you got Kaiser White. So you've changed your entire room. You've gotten better. It's up to you now to get your guys ready and to scheme them correctly.
In other words, you have a fantastic crew, but the captain still needs to lead the ship. Yes. And if you're weak at the top, it doesn't matter who's at the bottom.
Definitely. And speaking of the captain, let me move on to my next question. And I'll start off with you, Lindy. What are your expectations for Coach Nick Sirianni this season?
Siri has put himself in a much better position, in all honesty, to where he can be a lot more player-centric and getting his guys ready for the big game week in and week out. We already know that he has given up a lot of, the majority of play calling responsibilities to Shane Steichen, and for one, that's just a testament to, the belief that a coach has in his partners and his coordinators to get the job done. And, while he has come up to bat multiple times for Jonathan Gannon in the same respect, well, that's where we're going. That's where we're going for in terms of Shane Steichen, and the amount of criticism that Sirianni was under last year for being the for being the gardener that he was, and everything else you want to put on his plate, but it still takes a type of humbling for a guy to have to be able to recognize and say, okay, what I've been doing from the beginning is not working. I'm not helping my quarterback. I'm not helping my offense. I'm going to put my foot forward and say, okay, I'm wrong for doing this. Let's try something else. And lo and behold, from a run perspective, the team was top 3 or top 5 across the board in multiple categories. I mean, we were the best running football team once that transition was made last year. So for him to be able to make that kind of change seamlessly, for him to be a player, for him to be a player's coach, for him to be able, to have the mentality and the leadership to really keep drama away, to have an attraction of bringing those types of players in the first place. Sirianni's off to a great start, and for us at that point, wanting a more proven or veteran type of head coach. Well, now I think it's fair to say at this point now, regardless of the lack of experience, that was a little bit of a slap in the face to Sirianni for not giving him a proper chance. And I think that he has proven a lot of us wrong to this point. So now it's up to him. It's up to him to build on the success that no one was really expecting out of him last year. To people say that, oh, this team's going 4-13, and all these predictions of us being under 500. Well, we still managed to make the playoffs at 9-8. Granted, it's not the greatest result on paper, but for a first-year head coach to accomplish something like that, it is praiseworthy. But again, the same mentality we're having for Jonathan Gannon right now, it goes for Sirianni. The job is not quite done.
Definitely. I agree. Perfectly said. Papa, what are your expectations from the coach?
I mean, pretty much got to agree exactly with what Lee said again. Sirianni, we all started off slow. It was a lot of chance of run the ball. You had the fans shouting it in even like Phillies games or whatever. You had them shouting it in sports that didn't even relate with the Eagles.
Even his own players.
Yeah, even his own players. I was about to say Devontae Smith tweeting that out.
Yep.
You had this guy. This guy was being dogged on from the start. With his stuttering, everybody was like, "This dude's gonna be trash."
Yeah.
You had the whole run the ball. You had him being like, "My players are flowers."
Yep.
Like,
he's not ready. Yep.
Yeah. What are you talking about? This dude doesn't know how to talk. Blah 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 blah. He definitely turned it around. He started running the ball. He started getting in Jalen's ears. He started getting in players' ears. He brought.
I loved that, man. I tell you what. Yep.
Yeah. He brought.
Don't be afraid to tell your quarterback what's what.
Lay down the hammer.
That was great.
Yeah.
Yep.
He brought down the QB coach, Johnson, down to the field instead of up from the box, which helped out Jalen a lot. He helped out in the later season. He took his lumps. He got better, got us to the playoffs. Yes, we did not win. Yes, it was 9-8, but for exactly what everybody was saying, this was going to be a 4. We would be battling for the first overall pick. We'd be dealing with all of that. So for a first-year head coach, the dude took his lumps. He's changed the way that we've drafted, because the past 2 draft classes have been the best that we've had in years.
Yep.
He's actually getting saying in it. Yes, he's getting saying in it. You can tell that these are his picks. You can tell that he is in Howie's ears, telling Howie, "This is the guy I want." Howie's saying, "Okay." Again with Gainwell, both Howie and him wanted it. Howie and Nick wanted Gainwell. You even see it with Jonathan Gannon. Everybody wants to dog on that clip of Tom Donahoe not high-fiving Howie. That's because the guy he wanted was selected by the Lions. Gannon wanted Milton Williams. Gannon got Milton Williams. Gannon was the happiest man in that draft room. So, Sirianni's now given play calling to Steichen. So he's got his lumps out the way. He's got his first year down. He's ready for year 2. He's gotten more players, so he's I feel like he's buckling down, and he's just ready to get to work. So I'm very excited for Gannon. I do think we will be back in the playoffs, and I do think Sirianni will be ready for that this time, and hopefully Gannon as well.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, listen, we've seen a lot of highs and lows from Coach Sirianni last year. We've seen the season end on the low with how that Tampa Bay game ended out. But then we've seen this all season where we've seen him give up the play calling duties to Shane Steichen. So hopefully he is growing as a coach. We're seeing that maturation process. Hopefully, this season, he could build on what he did last season. But let me ask the last question of the day, because we're here past 2 hours. And I'll start off with you, Papa. What are your expectations for the team this season?
Again, not expectation for the teams is don't start off like you did last year. Don't start off too slow and wait till halfway through or like week 8, week 9 to figure out your identity. You found out your identity, you shouldn't be starting off too slow. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be losing any games at the beginning, because week 2 against the Vikings, yes, that's at home, possibility we lose that, but don't start off not knowing who you are. Start off looking better than last year. Start off fast, start off strong, be competitive. I don't want to see any games where it's like, oh, we're coming back, but we've been out of this game since halftime.
Mm-hmm.
As for long terms, again, I'm thinking playoffs, past wild card, potentially division, winning the division. That's just long term. I do think we can do that. But my main expectations as of now is just remember your identity. Don't start off slow.
I like it. I like it a lot. Lindy, what are your thoughts? What are you expecting for the Eagles this season?
For as much dogging that we have put on the defense, as far as I'm concerned, the offense is not without its criticism as well, because Sora has already alluded to it in the beginning. It's about identity and knowing what your identity is going from week 1 to week 17 or week 18, however you want to call it, and not be in a position where you have to make a change out of almost desperation because it's going to make or break your season. I think the Eagles are going to be better. They're going to be better off to start. They're going to have a game plan written in pen instead of pencil, and then have to erase it and make some changes that way. And you already know that there's going to be a level of expectation based on the sole fact that, of course, everyone's looking at the strength of schedule. The Eagles are top 5 this year, right next to the Dallas Cowboys. And, those two are going to be in a battle for the NFC East and yada, yada. Well, okay, strength of schedule has its misconceptions because, of course, that's not taking into consideration on how those said teams improved from a season-to-season basis, in which they're, the basis of it is going off of what their record was last year. Detroit improved. Washington improved. The Giants, well, I don't have much to say there. I don't have much to say there other than they got themselves a stud in Kayvon Thibodeau. They still have to work out the quarterback position since they didn't give Daniel Jones his 5th-year option. And as we know, being it's a quarterback-driven league, you want to be a team that wins because of your quarterback in spite of your quarterback. The Eagles are going to be in the same position, because of, we're going to try and limit what Jalen does, from a perspective of, bailing on plays where he doesn't necessarily need to, and, develop a level of patience to where when that your receiver is going to be at the peak of their route, trust yourself in getting him the football, stuff like that. And And then, of course, yeah, we've touched enough on the defense, so I think we'll take a bit of an ease on the punching bag of Jonathan Gannon, since we spent I think a good 20 minutes on that. But to get to the end of it here, record-wise, I've said it for the longest. My floor for this team is 11 games. I think anything under that is a disappointment with the magnitude of upgrades that the team has made from an overall standpoint. Again, special teams is still a big problem for me that they have to figure out in terms of kick and punt returns. I don't want Greg Ward back there anymore. I don't want Boston Scott back there anymore because, again, he's a little unpredictable to me. Jalen Reagor to this point is unpredictable on how many fumbles he's going to have. He, 1 week he has a fumble, and then the next week he has a special teams touchdown. Dude, give me some consistency first. But yeah, in regards to that, from a record perspective, again, like I said, my floor for them is 11 games. I ultimately have them going 12-5. One win is going to separate the division winner because I have Dallas going 11-6 to our 12-5, and my ceiling for them, although I want to be the guy that says Super Bowl, but there is some realism that we have. There is some realism that we have to apply here, and based on how the pool of the NFC goes, I think this team is capable of reaching the NFC Championship game. So I will put it at that.
Ooh, that was very lofty expectations. I like it, from your lips to the guy's ears. Listen, I think there's a lot of expectations on this team. The fan base, again, with all the moves that have been made, there's a lot of excitement. People are expecting a lot from this team. But for me, what I expect is I want to see improvement from last season, from the coaching staff to the players. I want to see steady improvement. Like you said, I want to see a better record than last year. I want to see them go further into the playoffs. But I want to see cohesiveness. I don't want to see what happened last year where, you have players upset with how things are going and they're speaking out. That's something I don't want to see. Again, Nick Sirianni said it best. If you fly alone, you're going to be, you're by yourself. If we fly together, we'll fly high. That's what they need to do this season. They need to be together. We need to be cohesive. We need to have a game plan, and we need to stick with it. We can't be like how last season in the beginning, we thought that, we were going to be a pass-first team, and it didn't work out. We had to revert to a wild game plan and then go to a running team. I want a clear, set plan from week one and stick with it. And hopefully that plan works. On the defense, like you said, Lindy, we've been beating up Jonathan Gannon, but for good reason. He needs to step up a lot. Again, out of all the coaches on that team, he's the one that needs to step it up the most. And hopefully he can do that. Again, he's been given the talent to do so. So, I expect a lot from the Eagles. I don't see an NFC championship yet. I do see it in the future. But for this season, I don't. But who's to say that it won't happen? Again, I think for our quarterback, Jalen Hurts, I think he's going to have a great season. I think he's going to improve, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. But I don't think he's a person who's looking to do that. I don't think he really cares what you think about him, which is great for us.
Right.
That, his attention is focused solely on football and becoming a better player and having a better player for his team and making his team better. I think that's what he's focused on, and that's great for us.
Let us remember this for humor's sake too. This team does not have a Mike Rowe or a Press Taylor on it anymore, to where we had a guy that was buddy with the quarterback and didn't want to tell him when he was wrong at X, Y, and Z or stuff like that. He was always trying to butter him up and say, it's okay, and make sure he gets his ice cream voucher from the head coach. We don't have any of that anymore, and we don't have guys that don't know how to use certain receivers, much like when Golden Tate was here. we don't have any of that anymore. Although there has been some people that have been a little bit disappointed in Aaron Moorhead that he can't get the most out of this receiver, this, that, and the third. Sure. There still is that kind of criticism, but it's not a means of dysfunction. It's just a difficulty in trying to find a purpose for some of these guys. So I thought I'd throw that out there too.
No, that's great. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be an uphill battle for every team. It's going to be an uphill battle. But
Yeah.
the one thing I want to take away with, like I said, I really think that these players are going to improve on what they did last year. They're just going to build upon it. Now, it might not be where people expect them to be. Like I've heard people say, Jalen Hurts is going to flat out win the MVP, going to be the best player of the league. We don't know, but I'm not going to put that on him right now. All I'm saying is I think he's going to improve on what he did last season. The
And that's
things
how you
that
get
he
clipped.
did wrong, he's gonna
Right.
he's gonna be better at it. He's not gonna make those mistakes anymore. Will he make mistakes? Of course he will. But will he improve on what he did last year? That's what we will. That's what remains to be seen. And I think he has the ability to do it. He's put in the work in the offseason. He's taking it serious. He's been working with his guys. There's no reason to think otherwise. Now, I will say for fans, I think we all need to temper our expectations. Just because moves are made don't mean that we're automatically going to win everything and we're going to have the greatest player. Kind of like to what Miles Sanders was saying, like it's an all-star team.
Yeah.
We're an all-star team on paper and only on paper.
Yeah.
No one has taken the field yet. We haven't seen what the product is. So I think everyone needs to take everything with a grain of salt. Just calm
Yeah.
down for a minute. Training camp hasn't even started yet. After we see what goes on in training camp, then you can probably base, conclusion on what could happen this season. But until then, all back. Calm down.
Yeah,
Just enjoy the
100%.
game for now.
Right.
And again,
Yep.
again, it's also like when we say that, it's not like we're saying, "Oh, the Eagles are going to be bad," or we're not real Eagle fans. Like when we say we're realistic, I think, can all agree we're going to be better than last year. We'll have double-digit wins, like 11, 12. That's my win prediction, all that stuff. But we're not going to sit out here and say we're the number one. We're going to be the number one seed. I'm throwing shade, but yeah, we're not sitting here saying we're going to be the number one seed.
Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah.
And also,
If
I'm
you-
glad you
listen,
mentioned that.
that's
I'm glad you mentioned.
Oh God.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I find it hard to believe that some people are like, this team is better than the Super Bowl team. We haven't even taken one snap together as a team.
Talk about it.
Explain that shit to me, please. It doesn't
Talk
make
about it.
sense.
Like I said, just just slow it down. Let everything come as it will. Like I said, this team has enough talent that in the future, we could be one of the best in the league. But right now, let them gel. Let them have time to grow. Don't put too much on their plate for right now. But we're approaching about, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Gentlemen,
Right.
I appreciate you both for coming through. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let the good people at home know where they can find you. Papa, I'll start off with you.
Yeah, y'all can find me on YouTube at Papa Sora. I just stream games there. Might do stream soon. Y'all can mainly find me though for sports take at the East Coast Gridiron. I'm a member of that. Good buddy Dante is in
sir.
charge of that, and my good buddy Vic up above me is also a part of that. So yeah, y'all can find us both at East Coast Gridiron on YouTube.
Yep. Thank you for coming through, my guy. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
Lindy, let them know where they can find you.
Sure. I mean, and you alluded to it in the beginning of the stream. Ever since my return back to the platform, it has been pretty darn positive to create a podcast through a sports network that we're 10 episodes in now. It's called the LinkedIn Podcast. You can find me over there. Keeping my series of Touchdown Talk going, in which I've had a different content creator for every episode. The latest one being Philly 500. So make sure you check that out over on my channel to see what he had to say. But you already know how I do. Taking the lead for the Eagles one video at a time. Scoring them touchdowns, man. That's find me on my channel. Find me on Twitter, and all about the birds.
Hey, man, thank you again. Appreciate you. Everybody, if you have not, please go to these fellas' channels, subscribe, like, share, push that content out. In the description of the video, you will find their links, their Twitter handles. Everything is there. Gentlemen, again, appreciate you for coming through. Listen, if you can, please like, subscribe to my channel as well. I'm trying to reach 200 if you can. It's been an amazing week. Guys, again, I can't say it enough. Essie, apologize. Thank you for coming through, my guy. Late, but hey, you came through. That's
You're
all I
still
care
here.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're still here. Thank you so much. But it's been a great week. Everybody at home, hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you're able to start off your Monday right, because we all know that's one of the worst days of the week. You know, work starts again. But I hope you're able to have a great night of rest and able to start your Monday off right. It's been another week of the big ticket. I'll see you later.